So now that I've got the structure in place and I've got the database, the extra table in the database, now I need to go in and create some files to be able to write to create that new user. So write to ASP users table, and also to write to our extra table that's collecting that extra profile information. So we're going to add a new customer. That's going to be a function of a salesperson. So let's go into the sales department. Add new customer. And after we add a new customer, we want to be able to view. So let's do a view all customers. Okay, let's update our sitemap. This will be under sales. So right here under sales, add a new customer.aspx, add a new customer.aspx, view all customers.aspx. Okay, and it's under the sales sitemap node here. So let's save this up. And now let's see what happens when we view in the browser. Okay, add a new customer. Forces a login. Okay, looks like it's working. View all customers. Let's just stick in this information here. Save that up and we'll check it in our browser again. Yeah, add a new customer, view all customers. So we're moving around, everything looks like it's working correctly there. This add a new customer, I'm going to do that using the CreateUserWizard. Alright, so we'll get into add new customer. Take this out. I'm going to stick in the CreateUserWizard. Okay, and this comes up. So now it prompts us for the username, the password, the email, all of those kinds of things that we see when we're using that tool in Visual Web Developer to add our users and roles and stuff. But this is letting us do it from the, letting a user do it, have the ability to add in here. We have different steps. We can sign up for the new account and we can complete. What we want to do is add a step. So we want to set the step type to be a step. The ID will be user profiles, or user profile, and the title user profile settings. Now notice we sign up, we complete, and then we do those. That's in the reverse order, so let's bump that up one. So now we sign up, we do that email business, then we'll do our user profile settings, and then we'll complete. So that's the proper way to move through it. Okay. Now we can go in here to user profile settings to our new step. And I'm just going to type in some nonsense in there so I can find it. Whenever you leave this control, you need to make sure that it's always set to sign up for your new account. If you leave it on one of the other steps, you'll get an error. So let's save that and let's jump over here to source now. So we can see there's the create the user wizard control. Then we have wizard steps. We have the create user wizard step. Then we have our wizard step that we put in there with user profile. There's the nonsense that I typed in. And then finally we have complete wizard user step. Alright, so I'm going to just clean this up real quick here. And this is where I want to be. So what I'm going to do is just put in some text boxes and just some labels within a table. So I'm going to copy and paste and I'll explain what I just did. Okay, so within our user wizard step here, user profile settings, I created a table rows, table data, align it right, first name, align left is just an ASP text box. I want to give a unique label, set the width, close up the table data. So I'm collecting first name, last name, city, and state. Now state is a drop-down list from here. Okay, that I've added in. I've given it a unique ID. I have set the data source. All right, so this is a SQL data source. These are the database fields that we're pulling from. So if you'll remember in our database, the field is called postal code. That's what I've put in here. All right, I've added a SQL data source. This is just a regular SQL data source. You can add it any way you want. I had to give it a unique ID, so this matches this. All right, so this drop-down box is going to get its information from this data source. Then from this data source, we're going to select postal code. All right, so we're selecting that field from the database, tr_postal code. And if I switch this over to design view, I move into the user profile steps. Okay, I can configure it this way as well. All right, I have these things. I have this information filled in here. Looks pretty good. Next thing I want to do is get into the complete. And in the complete, I want to edit it, customize the complete step. This lets me work with this button. I can double click it and it puts a subroutine and the code behind. And so after we're all finished with everything, I want to just redirect to view all customers. Okay, so there's that. I'll open this up a little. Excuse me. All right, add a new customer. Okay, I also don't like this being on the left. I want to see if I can center that up. So align, I'll change that to center. And I'll save the VB. Okay. All right, so it looks pretty good. So here's the wizard, here's the completed wizard step. Here's my wizard step. I could also do modify the starting step just by changing it. Sign up for your settings, then I can get in and edit. I'm sorry, customize if I chose to. So remember, we got to leave this on sign up for your new, all right, on the very first step in order for it to work correctly. So I'll leave it there. Now, if I get back into the source and I look at this, so I'm collecting a lot of information in a text box. All right, I'm collecting first name, last name, city in a text box, and I'm collecting state in a drop-down list. I'm going to want to write this information as well as the information from this CreateUserWizard, so the username, the password, all those kinds of things. I'm going to want to write those into the database. So I'm going to do that in the code behind. So now that I'm in the code behind, I'm going to cut and paste, and I'll explain to you the steps I've taken. First thing I need to do is add this import system data SQL client right at the very top. All right, this is so that I can work directly with, or write directly to the SQL Server. And then I'm going to grab this subroutine, CreateUserWizard1 active step changed. So that means we've moved from one step to the other. So if I go back here and look at the ASPX, I can see it's CreateUserWizard1. All right, active step just means we're moving in between those steps. So I want to grab this whole subroutine. And put it right in here. So here's what we're going through. We're looking at CreateUserWizard1 active step changed. Okay, so we've moved between steps in that wizard. Next thing I want to know is the title of the active step complete, which means we're done. We've moved all the way through it. If it is, then I'm going to take these actions, and then I'll end if. First thing I'm going to do is create a variable of user settings with the wizard step. User profile settings. All right, this is what we are grabbing back here. This should actually be user profile. Okay. Now that I've set that variable, I can go in here. I'm going to create a variable, grab the first name, last name, and the city. Get them out of the text box. All right, these refer to the IDs. Last thing I want to do is I want to create a postal code. Grab the string, the postal code as a string. So from that drop-down list, get the selected item text and write it into there. The next thing I want to do is the first thing that happens is I write it into ASP users. So the username, the password, the email, the favorite color, all those kinds of things writes first. Then the additional information, profile information will write. So when that first bit of information used in, I want to capture that. So I'm declaring a variable new user as a membership user, membership get user from the CreateUserWizard1 username. All right, so whatever on that very first screen I typed in as username, I want to capture that and write that in the variable. Now, when I create the new user, the database automatically assigns a unique ID, a GUID. So I want to capture the GUID that is created when we write this username in and store it as the variable new user ID. So I'm doing that through here, new user, provider user key GUID. So I'm going to capture that. The other thing, I don't want this new user to be just created and just hanging out there. I want to put them in a role so that I can manage them. So I want to take this new user, the username, and I want to add it to the role customer. So now any users that I create using this particular web form will be added into the customer role. I could have a different web form up here under admin that I could add them to the sales role or add them to the admin role. But for this particular one, I'm doing customer. All right, I have that configured. So now it's just writing all this information to the database. So the first thing I have to do is make a connection string to my connection string, update SQL, insert into This is the name of the table. These are the different fields. All right, I want to write that user ID from ASP.NET users. I want to write that into user profile user ID. So those are the same. Remember, we have that foreign key relationship there. I want to capture that. First name, last name, city, postal code. Here are the values. After that, I'm going to open the connection. I'm going to write the information in, and then finally close the connection. All right, so quite a bit going on in this particular code behind. So let's save all this up. This membership user, you'll get this squiggly line. It seems to be working okay. It looks like we might need to add a reference, and we'll figure out how to get that done. But it seems to work okay without that, even with that line. So now I want to go to View All Customers. All right, I'm going to get rid of this. I want to add in a SQL data source and a grid view. I want to get into the SQL data source and configure it. User profile. And configure the grid view to use that data source. I'm going to save all of this up, and I'll view it in the browser. Okay, I want to log in. Mike Sales. Okay, now that I'm logged in, I can add a new customer. Username and password. This notion of when I click that continue, it should take me to the view all users. It drops me back here to re-authenticate. There's some kind of a bug going on there. We'll get that figured out. If I go to view all customers, I still need to authenticate. I can see Mike in was added, and I can arrange these and I can format them and all those kind of stuff, just like you already know how to do. So this is writing into the user profiles table, so I know that's occurring. Now what I want to know is this actually writing into the username, into the ASP.NET users, so I can try logging on as in. I seem to be able to log on. I can get into the customers, but I can't get into sales and I can't get into admin. So it seems to be working correctly. I can also verify this by going to the website, the ASP.NET configuration. Manage users. Here's that in that I just added. I can check the roles. It's a customer. All right, so our code behind for that page seems to be working. So that's using creating the new wizard, the new user wizard. One other thing to talk about really quick. This security question, I have seen where there are 3 or 4 security questions provided in a drop-down list, so you could try to do that if you would like to. Certainly not necessary for the assignment, but that's one way to thing that we could do to make this a little smoother. Otherwise, people could be typing in all kinds of different stuff in there. And that drop-down box is pretty important because now the data is always going in as the state, spelled correctly, capitalized correctly. Nobody's typing NE or Nebraska, or for the older set, the 3-digit postal codes, NEB and those kinds of things. So it's a way to format the data, and the users can select it instead of having to type extra characters in. So that's a pretty good overview of the Create New User Wizards. We still have to figure out the bug. So I found the solution to the bug that we were experiencing, where after you created a new user, instead of being redirected to the View All Customers page through that response redirect in the VBX, it was taking you back to the login page. Apparently, when the Create User Wizard completes, it attempts to log on the created user. So our created user is a customer. A customer has no permissions in sales. They've been denied. So we were getting the login page prompting for us to try to log them in. So the solution was to get into the add new customer page, get up here under the ASP Create User Wizard, login created user equals false. All right, after we save that, we can log in as Mike Sales. Okay, I can't get into the admin. I can get into the customer. I can add a new customer. And now it redirects me as it should, and I can see my new user has been created there.